Hey, what's up guys? Burden from Addict Gaming here. I'm going to show you a Ranger PvP build that I've been using the past week or so. It revolves mainly around spirits, and I've seen a Ranger use a spirit once or twice in PvP. I never see it, and I'm not sure why, because I've been having a lot of success with it. Uh, Basically what I have are two spirits. I have the Stone Spirit and I have the Sun Spirit. The Stone Spirit gives a chance for people to gain protection, you or your allies, and the Sun Spirit gives you a chance to apply burning to your target. And they also have additional abilities. The Stone Spirit it says quicksand. Your Stone Spirit softens the earth around it, immobilizing and crippling the foes. So when you have your spirit out and you activate it, then that's what happens. And the Sun Spirit has solar flare, which blinds foes around. This weapon skills, the weapon sets I'm using are the short bow, and I'm using the axe and warhorn. The short bow is the primary weapon that I use, but I actually really like the axe and warhorn for a few reasons. The number 3, Winter's Bite, applies a chill, and for a ranger I think a chill is very important, not just for the movement speed reduction, but also for the skill recharge rate. So when you're trying to kite people around, any type of chill that you can use is really good. So I like number 3, and number 2 applies a heavy bleeding, and this, along with the spirits, the build revolves around bleeding and burning for the conditions, and then just the regular damage from the short bow. Number 4 is Hunter's Call, where you call in all of the birds to attack somebody's face. It's probably one of the more amusing abilities in the game, and it actually does quite a bit of damage too. And then number 5 is probably the most important skill in this weapon set. I usually run around with the axe and warhorn, and then I'll use my number 5 Call of the Wilds right before I go into a fight, and then switch to my short bow. So I'll use my number 5 and then summon out my spirits before a fight, and then switch back to my short bow. Now if you don't know anything about the short bow, the number 1 crossfire, if it shoots really fast, and if you have if you're on the side or behind the target, you apply a bleed. But if you're in front, you don't apply a bleed, you just do a decent amount of damage. Number 2 is a poison volley, it's a frontal AoE that applies poison to people. Make sure when you use poison, the great thing about poison is the heal effectiveness, the negative 33% heal effectiveness. So make sure that you don't use it right at the beginning of a fight. You want to save it for when your enemy's starting to get lower in health, or when you think they're about to heal, you can put on a poison to lower their heal effect. Number 3, quick shot, is an evasive shot, and you fly backwards a little bit. It's kind of like, treat it like an extra dodge, basically. That's basically what it is, because you become evasive when you do it, so no one can hit you. And then you gain swiftness if you hit your target. And number 4 is a crippling shot. It applies a cripple and a bleed. This is probably the shot I open with when I'm attacking someone, so I can start kiting them around. And then number 5 is a daze and a stun. It dazes your opponent, but it'll stun them if you attack them from behind or you attack them from the side. This is basically my only stun in the build. So this is what I use for stomping and rezzing when I'm trying to stop someone from stomping my ally, or I'm trying to help out my own guy and res them. For my heal, I'm using Healing Spring. Even though I move around a lot in this build, it's still very easy to run through the spring again and then pick up the regen again. And I don't know, some people like the troll, the troll unguent, but I don't like it so much because it's not very good against very high burst classes like a thief or something like that. You're not even gonna see the heal really before you're dead. And another great thing about this heal is it cures conditions, so it's also a great support skill if you want to use it that way. I went through the spirits. My 3rd utility is lightning reflexes. This is my stun breaker, and it also gives me vigor, which it gives me 100% endurance regen. As far as the ranger goes with defense, a lot of their defense depends on dodging. It's not so much raw defense where you could just absorb a lot of damage, but you get a lot of endurance regen, so you're able to dodge a lot and evade a lot of attacks, and that's kind of where the defense of the ranger comes in. So make sure that you're dodging properly. Don't just dodge for the heck of it. Make sure you're actually dodging abilities that are gonna, like 100 blades or something like that. Something that's really gonna hurt you. And then my elite, I'm using Entangle. For me, I just think it's the best elite. With this, look at all the bleeding. I put 20 stacks of bleeding on, and I immobilize everyone around me. For my pets, I'm using the owl. I like the owl because he has the chill, and so like I was telling you before, when you're trying to kite somebody, having the chill makes it a lot easier. And if you look at his other abilities, he puts on a vulnerability every 8 seconds. It's only 1% more damage, it's not a lot, but he also gives you swiftness. Every 20 seconds he gives you swiftness for 13 seconds. So basically every minute you have about 40 seconds of swiftness on. So basically you have swiftness on the whole time. And for my second pet, I'm using the juvenile wolf because he has a fear, a 2-second fear, and then he also has a cripple, which helps me kiting people around. And then he actually has a knockdown. Now, you can't control these abilities, but I mean, anytime someone's knocked down when you're trying to kite them, then that's an added bonus. So he has a cripple, a knockdown, and a fear. So those are the 2 pets I'm running with right now. It's the owl and the wolf. For the traits, I have 15 in skirmishing. The first minor trait is Tailwind. You gain swiftness when swapping weapons. The first major trait is Sharpened Edges. Chance to cause bleeding on critical hits. Now, remember I said you only apply bleeding if you hit someone on the side or the back. So if you're hitting someone in the front, you're not going to be applying bleeding, and you're actually losing a lot of damage that way. So with Sharpened Edges and my sigil on my crossbow, or my short bow, I have a 60% chance on crit to inflict bleeding, and I have high crit. So hopefully I'll be applying bleeding the whole time, whether I'm in front or in back of the enemy. And then the first minor trait in the second tier is Furious Grip, where I gain Fury. So every time I swap weapons in combat, I'll get Swiftness and Fury. For Wilderness Survival, I have 20 in Wilderness Survival. I have Natural Vigor. This is the first minor trait. I think this, for any ranger build, this is a necessity to have, is Natural Vigor. Because like I told you before, I think a lot of the ranger's defense comes from just being evasive and dodging things, where you can't really absorb a lot of the damage, but you can just evade the damage completely. So when you have just a constant endurance regen increase by 50%, I mean, you could get 3 dodges off pretty quickly. The first major trait is any incoming disables gets transferred to my pet, and that's every 90 seconds. There's a 90-second cooldown. And then the second minor trait in Wilderness Survival is Companion's Defense. You and your pet gain 2 seconds of protection when you dodge roll. So you'll see with the Stone Spirit, that gives me protection, and then I have protection when I dodge roll. I'll have protection up a lot, and this protection is 33% decrease in damage that you're taking. And then in my runes as well, you'll see protection, duration, and everything like that. It'll all synergize and make sense to you once I get through the runes. Then Wilderness Knowledge, survival skills recharge 20% faster. And you might think that I only have one utility skill that's survival, and the other 2 are spirits, but actually my elite is considered a survival ability as well. So it actually goes from 150-second cooldown to 120-second cooldown, which is the same as the Rampage's 1 elite. So I don't see any reason not to take Entangle. For Nature Magic, this is like the bread and butter of the build, is Nature Magic, because I rely heavily on the spirits for the boons they give me, protection, and then the chance to apply burning. And I'll get all the benefits of the spirits through this tree. For the first minor trait, Rejuvenation, I gain regen when I reach 75%. Vigorous Spirits have twice as much health, so you're not just going to summon your spirits and they're going to die right away. They'll actually be able to survive a little bit. They do die quite a bit, but there are plenty of times where I have them go the full duration. Fortified Bond, any boon you get is shared with your pet. Spiritual Knowledge, spirit bonuses have a 15% better chance of providing their benefits. By default it's 35%, so now they're at 50%. And having a 50% chance to inflict burning is at the speed that I'm attacking with the short bow. I mean, I'll basically always have burning on, bleeding and burning. And burning, if you don't know, burning is probably one of the strongest conditions in the game, if not the strongest. So, Bountiful Hunter, you and your pet deal 5% more damage while you have a boon. And I basically always have some sort of boon on. So, I mean, this isn't a pretty awesome minor trait. And then my last one, Spirits Unbound. And this is the important one because now my spirits can move with me. They're not just stuck to the ground when I summon them. And then Beast Mastery, I have Zephyr Speed, which is also, I think, a necessity in any ranger builds. And that's you and your pet gain 2 seconds of quickness when you swap pets. It's really important to make sure you don't let your pet die, because when you switch pets, it's a 20-second cooldown. But when your pet dies, I think it goes up to like 45-50-second cooldown when your pet actually dies. And you want to be using the Zephyr Speed, so if you're attacking someone in the back and you have a good opportunity to apply a lot of bleed, you switch your pets real quick, and then every single attack that you do while you're attacking in the back is applying a bleed. It's a great way to stack bleeds really fast. Now for the runes, I'm using Rune of the Forge. The toughness is great. I don't really need the toughness. I just kind of added bonus, but I get 15% burn duration and 20% protection duration, and those are the two boons that I get for my spirits, so it really synergizes well with this spirit build. And then the 6-step bonus is at 50% health I gain protection for 10 seconds, and I burn all nearby foes. So if you think of, I have 3 or 4 ways of gaining protection on this build, and that's a lot, thinking that I'm taking 33% less damage. For my sigils, I'm using, on the Axe and Warhorn, I'm using Sigil of Superior Smoldering, which increases the inflicted burning duration, and then Sigil of Superior Agony, which increases inflicted bleeding duration. And then I showed you on my short bow, I'm using the Sigil of Superior Earth, 60% chance on crit to inflict bleeding. And then for my amulet, I am using Berserker's Amulet and the Berserker's Jewel. Every time I make a build like this where I'm using Berserker's Amulet, I always tell people, if you're having a really hard time playing the build, like you're dying a lot and you're not too sure what to do, go to the Knight's Amulet and then play with the Knight's Amulet for a while until once you figure out the builds and you develop that muscle memory for the skills, and you have a much better understanding of how the build works, then you can switch over to the Berserker's Amulet and it won't be as difficult for you. But that's the builds in general. I'm going to hop into some PvP and then I'll show you a few examples of how to play this build.
You lost the graveyard. You've captured the quarry. You lost the waterfall. base is under attack! Your base is under attack!
Attack!
You lost the graveyard. You've lost the quarry.
So vulnerable. They'll have to get much harder.
Your lord is under attack. Your lord is under attack. You've captured the quarry. You've taken the graveyard. Your lord is under attack.